Very excited today to have Ryan Crissey here with us. Special guest here on the channel. I'm Arthur, part of Honest Tree, this YouTube channel. And Ryan, he's the promoter of Velo, a cycling company that promotes and does crits and races. He's also the sporting director of Chaney Windows and Door. You notice the thing here on my shirt, which is a UCI pro team. Specifically a track team, and this is an organization that really promotes track cycling, especially in hopes, and not hopes, but actually promoting the best American track cyclists. And he is actually putting like I own. I don't own it, but I take some pride in it. That's why I say we. But putting actually riders into the Olympics this summer, and he wears many hats, including many years as a racer. Really as from a youth, almost competing to be on the Olympic team years ago and so forth. But anyway, I'm getting this, he's got a lot more he can say about himself. Ryan, please introduce yourself so these viewers know a little more about you.
Sure. I mean, you pretty much said it all. Big thing that's most relevant right now is that I'm the race director for the Tuesday Night Crits in Richardson, Texas. I'm also the team director for Chaney Windows and Doors, which is a UCI pro track team. I started racing back in '82 after getting a little Peugeot Junior with 24-inch wheels back in 1981 for my birthday. And just absolutely love the sport. Played a bunch of other sports through, finishing elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. Played football and then soccer through high school and college. But cycling has always been a passion, and I've been blessed that I've been able to travel the world a lot of times on someone else's dime. And I just really want to give back to the sport and create opportunities for other people to enjoy the sport, see what their future is, what opportunities they have, what potential they have, whether that's as a racer, as a mechanic, as a coach, as a administrator, which is really what a director is. It sounds glamorous, but I do a lot of paperwork and a lot of accounting and Expedia type stuff. So not as much fun. You know, it's not like you always see the Tour de France directors in the car yelling at people and on the radios and watching the TV in the car and trying to decipher what's going on. And it's not that exciting. It's a lot of paperwork. So
yeah. Well, it sounds pretty exciting to me to be supporting the very best, some of the very best cyclists in the country, and to see the world championships. For me, as a recreational amateur masters racer, to be putting on the same kit as a person I'm watching in like the UCI World Championship on the track, it's like, oh yeah, I'm rooting for that guy. It makes me feel a little bit connected to the larger, the bigger cycling world out there through working with you. And just so this relationship here is that I joined Ryan's the rec version of this team, Chaney Windows and Doors. So that's been fun to be part of that. I really admire that you have really been a stalwart, if not the stalwart, of keeping the local racing scene going here. 2023, 2024. The Tuesday Night Crit last year, I think, which is in Richardson, Texas. I thought it was a resounding success the entire season. And why don't we first talk, though, a little bit about the season that's coming up here in 2024, starting next week on Tuesday. And for our viewers here, tell us what's going to be happening this season
it's going to be fairly similar to what we had last year, which, as you said, was a resounding success. We were the 7th largest race in the United States last year and the 3rd largest series behind Driveway down in Austin, which is absolutely amazing, and then another race series out in California. And then otherwise, the bigger races than us are things like Intelligentsia and such, which has weekend level racing, but for Intelligentsia over a course of several weeks. And then there's some big weekend races that are bigger than us. I do think it's interesting that Tulsa Tough, which is huge for us regionally, was 8th for the year. Wow. So that's kind of a interesting turn of events. But you know, we're going to have the same format as last year. We're going to have 4 races. We're going to have what we call the C race, which is category 4s and 5s. We're going to have the Masters, which is the 40 plus cat 1, 2, 3, 4s. The B race, which is cat 3s and 4s, and then the A race is cat 1s, 2s, and 3s.
And it's going to be in that. It's going to be in that order.
Correct. So, and that is a big shift for this year. I've had several people come to me and ask me about changing. It started really with Brett Hartzell, so I'll give him a little shout out for that. You know, I like to really look at the big picture and really try and think through why we do things the way we do. I tend to think I have a pretty good answer for that, but when people approach me about, hey, why don't you do this? I try to think through, okay, is that something that's actually reasonable? Is it something I've thought about? And in this case, I had thought about it a lot over the years. And what it does is most of our masters are cat 1, 2, 3s that also do the A race. And our masters race is extremely competitive and very fast. And so I always did the natural progression of you do your fastest races at the end. So therefore, C, B, Masters, A makes the most sense from that standpoint. However, the feedback I was getting from mini Masters was they need a little break. You know, when they're going to go up against the top cat 1s and 2s, especially now that we have some local UCI racers from Skyline Cadence, Butcher Box, etc., all racing. A lot of our 40 plus guys are like, hey, we need a few minutes rest before we're ready to just try and hang on to that. And then the same feedback from some cat 4s that were going from the C race to the B race. They just want a little bit of a break. And I said, you know what? I'm getting enough of that feedback. Let's try it. Let's see how it works. If it doesn't work, we can always go back. If it works and everyone likes it, then we'll keep it the way it is.
Yeah, it's really hard to do 2 races in a row, especially if you're involved in the last lap and sprinting. And then, you know, the next race goes off at the gun and there's an early attack. That's just the hardest place to hold on. I guess, you know, if, you know, there is that small, so I think the one where there's the least crossover are people that do the B race and the A race. Probably the least crossover there, maybe. Yeah, and to joke around a little bit, this might be the anti-Sandbagger schedule. The guy who's like fast enough to be in the A race, but just kills everyone in the B race, I guess. They'd have to make their choice one way or the other, perhaps.
Well, and especially if they're coming right off of finishing or winning the B race, then they're going to have all those cat 1, 2, 3s going, hey, you know, while you're here and you're warmed up, you may as well do the A race too. So yeah,
Sure.
we'll definitely get to see that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
I got a lot of feedback from a lot of cat 1 masters and cat 2 masters that are competitive in the A race that said masters race is just too hard to go back to back.
Right.
And so, you know, nothing against cat 3s and 4s. That race just isn't as hard or as fast or as strategic as the Masters races. I mean, we've got Masters national champions, Masters world champions that are regulars. There's a lot of great strategy and teamwork, and it really is a competitive race, and it's a ton of fun. So,
yeah,
you know, but getting more of those guys to be able to race the A race too makes a lot of sense.
It's going to make the Masters race more competitive because I think some of those guys that wouldn't have done the Masters race or did it very little last year might do it this year with that extra break. One of my favorite moments last year in the Masters was actually being on the wheel in the last couple laps of a national champion who did an attack, and you know that was a fun moment in that sense. So having these like really fast guys, it adds to the pizzazz for someone like me that's at a significantly lower level to be involved. I think it's a lot of fun. Let's talk about the cost of the race. Now, the cost is still $20, which is all you can race per your category. So, for example, you can race the B and the A, for example, if you're a Cat 3, and so forth, whatever you can qualify for it. Now, this is a very good price, and it's not going up. Everything else in the world is going up in price. The Tuesday Night Crit presented by Turbo Velo is not going up. Tell us about that.
So, it's I come from a track background where in track racing, you get, if whether it's a Tuesday night or Friday night or whatever night of track, based on which track you're at, you get a couple races a night. So you get a couple opportunities to learn from the finish and the tactics and everything else. So track racing is just such a great learning opportunity for racers. And the problem we have in weeknight crits is you get one a week. And you know, if by reducing that uh, barrier to entry of cost, then it gives people more opportunity to jump into a race. So if you have that cat 3 that's not sure about whether or not they're ready to go from the B race to the A race, they can still race their B race, then they can start the A race and see where they are. Or that cat 4 that's going from the C race to the B race, same thing. They can still compete in one race and then use the second one for fitness and to see how they do. And we've seen many times in the last couple of years where those riders are suddenly then competitive in that next level race, and they realize, okay, it really is time for me to move up. So kind of your point about the anti-sandbagger is it creates that opportunity for people to not just stay in the category because they're afraid of moving up to that higher level race. So
Right.
want to encourage as much participation and opportunity to race and learn as possible.
Right. For these racers that are beginners, I think, when you've done the C race and you do that first B race, there's a real excitement in doing your like first B race. You're like, I'm here, I'm on this wheel, or doing like your first A race, like, oh wow, I'm in the A race. Oh wow, I'm not dropped yet. It's a real sense of excitement. It's really great to see people that you watch them progress and move up, and you're like, wait a second, that guy like won the C race. Now he's like on the podium in the A race in the same season. They moved
Yep.
up, and this kind of race series gives people an opportunity to progress and move up, not to mention to get points through the USAC. Your
Yep.
race is part of the USAC program, correct?
Correct. And that's something that's very important to me. I know that the various talking heads on social media love to bag on USA Cycling. I found them to be an outstanding partner as a race director. I mean, the insurance is one thing, and it's not cheap, but the protection they give us, both for me as a race promoter, then also going to the cities and showing them that we have really good, legitimate insurance is important. More importantly, though, this opportunity for riders to gain experience, to move up in category, and to have that mean something through the rest of the country is an important part of national level cycling. And seeing, as you alluded to, some of the riders move up through the season. And, we've had outstanding development over the years with our juniors that have moved up from being Cat 4s and 5s and moving up to being Cat 2s. And, like this year, one of the juniors that I think very highly of is Jack Vitale, who had great racing last year as a 15-year-old kid. And he's going toe to toe with the Butcher Box guys and, the United guys. And, those are top level teams. So him doing that kind of thing. And of course, last year he's on Pegasus. This year he's on Skyline. So he'll have, that team support from them and be playing a team support role also. So it's a great learning opportunity for him. But we've seen that with a lot of juniors, whether they were with Matrix or Play Try has a phenomenal junior program, and they're very passionate about our events. So love seeing them come out and see what we can do to help that along and give them again those learning opportunities, those experience opportunities.
Let's talk a little bit about the beginning racer. You just mentioned that. I think that's a good segue. I really wrung my hands for a long time before I did my first crit, my first race. And I probably asked like a million people. I did all this analysis. I was looking at my watts per kilogram, and I finally go to my first race and I get second place. And that was great. But one thing that told me is I waited too long. And so there's probably there's some people watching this, parents and masters athletes, 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds, teenagers that haven't raced yet, but they're thinking about racing and they're watching this video. Should I do it? Tell us a little bit about what would you tell them, the ones that are thinking about racing but haven't done it yet?
I would say absolutely try it because you don't know. You could have picked up maybe several more months of racing where you were competitive. You may not have gotten second that first time if you'd started 3 or 4 months earlier, but you would have been in the field. You would have been competitive. You would have learned a lot just from being in the field and learning how to interact with the other racers around you. You know, we've all done group rides, and we all think of group rides as kind of informal races. The reality is there's just a little different atmosphere in an actual race. When you're, you know, it's a sanctioned race, you're paying the entry fee, you're getting prizes, you know, getting points for a series, potentially winning a jersey, those types of things brings it up just a notch, or maybe even 2 notches. But getting that experience, and to your point, the opposite way of, okay, you jump in too early. Here it's $20. And, you know, depending on what category you are or what age, at this point, if we're talking about a category 5, there's one race they can do. But at $20, you can try it once and see where you are. And if you're not ready, then you know, keep training for a couple of months, and then you jump back in and see where you are. Or it tells you maybe you need to work with a coach, or you need to work on some specific skills. Plus, you're going to meet all those other riders and racers that you'll also see on the group rides, and be able to kind of bend their ear and ask some questions and network with, and really be a part of that community that's important. Whereas if you wait where all of a sudden you're winning, or, you know, on the podium of the C race, then all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, you know, it's time to move up. Well, you just did one race, you know, and they're telling you you're Sandbagger, but you've only done one race in your entire life.
Right.
You know, so getting that experience and just being in the pack is an important part of racing. Results themselves aren't indicative of where someone really is as a complete cyclist.
Right. I also want to point out that as a Cat 3, I think I'm the only amateur, you know, Cat 3 guy in the local area who's been called out by the national cycling media as a sandbagger, and that was on the NorCal cycling video where he featured my video, and they called me a sandbagger on the video. So that's my claim to fame, as being a nationally known sandbagger, winning the B race.
Didn't you also win the Masters 1, 2, 3s the next week?
That was a different race. So the video with NorCal was a different video. So I sandbagged again later and won the B race, and then the next week won the 40 plus. So, which completely was actually shocking to me, because I thought I was in terrible shape. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
And it does also show the skill, you know, how much there is besides just fitness or speed. That there's a lot there. So.
Yeah, you know, like, you may say my numbers aren't good, like my power is not good, my maximum power is not good, my FTP is not good enough. One of the amateurs that I really watched on YouTube, you know, he told me his FTP is below 200, and he won lots of like B crits. He was a good sprinter in his case, but he knew tactics. He knew about you know, conserving energy. He knew, you know, there's a lot more to it than your power numbers and things like that. So if you just like watch, you know, YouTube videos and podcasts, and, you know, you're doing Trainer Road, it's all about the power metrics, and all that's great, but like conserving energy is like a huge thing, and you can get a lot further than you think. You say, oh, that race was 25 miles per hour, I could never do that. Then you get in the bunch and you're like, oh my gosh, I just rode 25 miles an hour, it was no big deal. So completely different than your group rides, for those of you that haven't raced yet. Let's talk a little bit about the series. We're still doing a 4-race series where points accumulate, not for the team, but for individuals. And there will be a winner for each series. So you have 4 weeks in a row, and there's points for each of the categories of races, and those accumulate, and the person with the most points at the end of the series is the series champion. Tell us about why you chose that last year and why you've stuck with it this year.
So, you know, last year it was 24 weeks. And so I was looking at 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and kind of traditionally we do 6 or 8 weeks. And what I found as a rider is that you do well the first week or two and you're really excited about it. And then about 4 weeks in, you've got a wedding to go to, or you know, it's summer vacation, so you're taking the family out, or something else is going on, and then you miss a week or two, and suddenly you lose, you know, your opportunity to win that jersey because it just went too long. Or you get to week 6, 7, 8, and, you know, because you won the first week, and you're, trying to hang on to this lead, now it's really become mentally exhausting. And you've really changed everything about your week in, week out training around this one Tuesday night crit, which is a great race, don't get me wrong, but it's still a weeknight crit. This is not the Tour de France, right? So putting that kind of emotional strain on people and that kind of mental stress is not what I want for a weeknight hobby. A great friend of mine, Jimmy Tart, recently referred to it as our poker night each week. And I think that's a perfect analogy of it's us going out and doing our little thing, one night a week and having a ton of fun with it. But it should be just that. It shouldn't create a whole lot more mental stress about, oh, now I've got to defend for the next 7 weeks. You win the first week, you've only got 3 more weeks, or you get second or third, and you've only got 3 more weeks to really kind of worry about it. And then the whole thing resets. And so we can do these kind of bite-sized chunks, and it makes it a whole lot simpler that if you have travel plans or get sick or anything else happens, that you can do it in these little bite-sized chunks.
Right. And, I guess when things get wrapped up and it seems like there's a definitive winner, say halfway through, like 8 weeks or 6 weeks, having that ability to reset, we had, in the Tuesday night crit, at least in the Masters race, like, we had some series where like a new team jumped in midway through the season, in a new series, and it completely changes the dynamics of the racing and really improves it and helps it. Of course, we want everyone there for every series, but having that ability to reset, restart, I think 4 weeks, was really good. It felt just right for me.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and it has been fun last year, and the Masters especially, because of the experience level of the teams and the diversity of the teams. We had a lot of just great strategic racing and different teams having the jersey and defending, and other teams, going on the attack. And one week there was 3 different teams who were 3 really good teams, and all within striking distance of winning. I think there was 1 or 2 points between the top 5 riders, and some really great racing. And that final week, to the point that Andrew Armstrong, who is a phenomenal racer and the director of the Jesuit program, which I think is the best high school program in the country, and especially looking at, they've got a couple of pros and national team member that's actually today, right now, about to start the World Cup in Hong Kong, or sorry, Nations Cup in Hong Kong here in just a few minutes. So, but Andrew made the comment after the race of, there's one point where he knew he was supposed to attack, and that was kind of his best opportunity. But he was so entertained with the strategy and the high level of tactics between the races and between the teams that he just wanted to spectate and watch and have that front row seat of everyone doing it by the textbook of, this team attacks, this team chases, and then counters, and this third team does this. And, that's how the bike racing is supposed to be, but you don't often see it at a local level. And so seeing that come about at local level Masters was just a lot of fun last year.
The best seat for a bike racing fan is actually in a bike race. Is that not true?
Sure. Absolutely.
Like it's like a micro sporting scene. Some of us may follow like Major League Baseball or whatever sport, NFL, and you get to know the players. It's the same thing in the local racing scene. You get to know the people, you get to know the teams, and not only can you watch, but you can actually be participating and witnessing right there on the course, and that's really fun to be part of the action. What about some basic things here that people might want to know? That's probably on the flyer, but chip rental is happening this year.
Yep. We still use the race result chip timing system. We're huge fans of it. Jeff Lucido with Race Day Systems helps set us up on that each year. He, I think, is at least North America's foremost expert on it, if not one of the world's foremost experts on it. In fact, I always joke that when Race Result has an issue, they call him to fix it. He can get into the frequency of the wire of the finish line, exactly how it works, and has really done a great job of explaining to me, so I understand the nuts and bolts and how it works. And making sure that we get the results we want, we get them consistently, we get them instantly. 99% of the time. Every once in a while, we have a little hiccup. But and then being able to go back and look at lap data and see, you were 7th with 1 lap to go, and then you ended up 28th, or vice versa. You're 24th with 1 lap to go, and then you end up winning the race. And seeing where you were each lap, and back to Andrew Armstrong with the Jesuit program, he specifically said he looks at it all the time. So he looks to see, with some of his younger riders, if they got dropped, when they got dropped, where were they positioned, what was the time gaps, etc. So knowing we're providing that kind of data to a coach like that is really great stuff. But then again, it allows us, as soon as a rider crosses the line, it's immediately published online. So you can watch the results each lap live as they are scored. And it's like Formula One racing or NASCAR, where it automatically just pops into the screen. So, that's a great thing. So we do have rental chips for someone who doesn't own it. It's $5 a week. For those that want to buy their own chip, they're $75. In theory, they last 5 years. Reality is they tend to last about 6, maybe 7. Really depends on how much you use them, what kind of conditions are stored in. If you leave it in your car where it gets hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold, it's going to wear down the battery a little more. If you're leaving it in your bike room in the house where it's always 72 degrees, they tend to last a little longer. There is a way to shut them down during the off season, but that's a bit of a process. That might be something we look at in the off season. But for $75 for something that lasts 5 years is a pretty good deal, considering a lot of people now are on latex tubes that are $35, $40 each.
Right.
Yeah.
We had folks come to the Tuesday night crit last year from out of town, out of state. I think that's growing. It used to be the Tuesday night crit, I think, was very regional, right? And being the main game or only game in town last year for weeknight crit series in Dallas Fort Worth. Of course, you're welcoming people from out of town, out of state to come to the crit and so forth. There may be some people here watching this saying, I wish there was a crit series in my metro area. I guess they're not going to be a crit series in a small town probably, but I'm in a major metro area. We don't have crits, much less crits going from March to August. Put on your promoter hat for a second and talk a little bit about what you would tell someone who is interested or wanting a crit series in their part of the country.
Sure. So the two things it takes, first of all, is a course. You have to have a course somewhere. For the Breckenridge course, we have an amazing partnership with the city of Richardson. So that's fortunate for us. There are many other cities that have parks similar that could do a crit like that, or the old everyone loves to dog parking lot crits, but parking lots can be phenomenal too, whether it's around a stadium or campus or something like that, whether it's a commercial campus for a large business or for a college campus or something like that. There's a lot of opportunities to find a course, and then someone to just say, hey, I'm going to put this on. Those are the two things it takes to start it. There's a lot of other little things. You got to have some patience. You got to have some buy-in from the local racers, etc. I think the biggest put off for a lot of them is just the startup cost for the promoter. The promoter worries about just taking on too much cost. And so then, next thing you know, they're trying to charge $35, $40, $45 for a crit that there may be 10 people in that first week or first year. So, keeping in mind that doesn't necessarily give you the value. One of the big competitors we have for the Tuesday night crits is what's called the pop ride, which you're a big participant in. And the argument those regular riders make is, I can go do this ride for free twice a week. And that is a perfectly valid, legitimate point. And it's a great ride. And it's competitive and it's spirited. And all those guys are good friends. And there's some camaraderie there. There's kind of a cult buy-in. Just don't drink the Kool-Aid. But so that is part of what racing is supposed to be too. So, this pop ride has really created this atmosphere, and there's no entry fee. So that's one of the things we're always competing against. So as a crit promoter, I'm always looking at, okay, what's the value I'm providing? Are people getting their dollar's worth. If I were to charge $35 or $40, and for the first race, and let's say you're going to do 2 races, another $20 for the second race, so now it's $55 or $60 a night. Is that value still there? You know, reality is there are some people that would still race. I would probably make a lot more money, but I'm not in this per se to make money. My wife wouldn't mind if I made money for a change, but that is not the stated mission. Stated mission is just to not lose money. One of the great examples of how successful a crit series can be is Driveway down in Austin. And they do an amazing job of everything. From Andrew Willis that started it and ran it for years, and his entire crew, and now Chris Tolley doing the same great job, and he's bringing his own twist to it, and really getting buy-in from the riders. They can charge more than we can, and if you enter one race, by the time you do the bike reg and the fees and everything, it's $40 for one race a night. It's $20 if you want to do a second, and it's another $20 if you want to do a third. So I think the breakdown is really, it's about $40 for the first one, about $62 to do 2, and about $84 to do 3 races in a night. And so I don't think they have as many riders doing multiple races. So they're losing some of those educational opportunities of doing multiple races. And I think losing some of the value of just the number of laps you're doing and the number of minutes and number of miles you're doing in a race scenario. And so that was one of the reasons that, I wanted this price point to be lower. Obviously not knocking Driveway in any way, shape, or form, because, I'm a regular racer there. I'm certainly a donor there, as Chris Tolley will attest to. I'm a big fan of what they do. I simply had a different vision for how I wanted to do things. So, I wish them and anyone else who wants to put on a crit series however they want, by all means, do it the way you think it should be done. And I hope you have the very best success. But I just had a little different vision.
So the Tuesday Night Crit, the 3rd largest crit series in the country, 7th largest race overall, I think, were the figures you cited. Is there any crit in that top 10 that is offering $20 races all you can race?
I don't know that there are definitely not. Your Gateway Cups, your Intelligentsia Cups, those are the races that are ahead of us. Your Speed Week in Georgia, stuff like that. Toad, Tour of America's Dairyland, is another one that's ahead of us. So these are your major national level races that are bringing in national level, bringing in riders from across the nation. There are guys who spend their entire vacation every year just doing Toad or Intelligentsia, or both if they're really lucky, or in school districts or teachers or whatever. So, and that's awesome. Love seeing them spend that time at bike races. But it's certainly much more expensive. But you're also getting much more. If you're going and doing Intelligentsia or Toad or Speed Week in Georgia, you're doing major level racing. Ours a little, I like to call it our little podunk crit. We try and add as much value as we can into that $20. I have had people complain that I didn't have this or didn't have that or didn't have food or, whatnot. And I said, well, if I charge $40 a night, I can have a Gatorade for you. But that's going to be a really expensive Gatorade. Or you can stop by the grocery store on the way in, or stop by 7-Eleven or Shell or whatever and pick up your own Gatorade and get whatever you want. And I'll keep charging $20. So that's kind of the philosophy we've gone with. If I can find ways to increase that value and justify going up in cost, I'd look at it. But I think we kind of found a sweet spot. This past year, I had several racers that hadn't raced in 15 or 20 years come back to racing because they said, I can't even go to McDonald's for $20 anymore, but I can come race my bike. And I can do 2 categories because I'm a master and I'm a, cat 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And I can race for an hour and a half for $20. And to me, that just sounds like a great time. So here I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. These fantastic prices, it's a bargain, no doubt. We had volunteers. You had volunteers last year that helped, for example, the corner where the cars come in and making sure that cars didn't come in. Talk about the volunteer opportunities for racers at the Tuesday Night Crit. coming up this year?
Sure, and same thing. So the biggest one we have for those that have never been there is our course is around a park. So you do have to cross the course in order to get into the parking lot. And so we have volunteers that do corner marshal. Last year we had different teams take different series. So, one team would take the first 4 weeks, the next team would take the next 4 weeks, and, kind of break it up that way. Anyone who worked that corner would get free entry, whether they wanted to use it that night and they were covering 2 of the races and then racing another race, racing the last one, or they wanted to postpone it to another week, or they had a spouse or a significant other or someone else that wanted to work for them and then, take the entry fee. So, I like giving away entry fee because one, it gives them buy-in to help the race. And a lot of times the guys that are helping don't need the free entry fee. They can afford it just fine, but they feel like they're a part of the race and, a part of making sure it happens. And absolutely, if we don't have people covering that corner, we cannot have the race. The city is very strict about that. So that's a vital part of making sure racing happens. And so back to the discussion about other metroplexes that don't have the metropolitan areas that don't have crit racing, that's part of what you got to get and buy-in is people to do some of those little things, and so if they spend 30 minutes, kind of making sure that a car doesn't turn onto the course or turn backwards on the course or whatever, that's an important part of making racing happen. Then little things like setting up or taking down, stuff like that. We do have the timing system. We always need more people to learn the timing system. It's remarkably easy to learn. The way Lucido explains it to you, because he just walks you through step by step how to do it. If there's a problem, it's easy to call him or text him and say, hey, we're having this snafu. The nice thing is our timing system records everything. So as long as you don't unplug it, kill it, turn it off, it's going to record everything. And we can always go back and fix it after the fact. So last year we had a unfortunate wreck on one of the weeks and had to combine 2 races. And we were able to go through and break out those results from those 2 races separately. And because we have this all you can race, some people were signed up for both races, and it was the Masters and the A race combined. So some riders were racing 2 races at the same time. They got both results because this timing system allows us to do that. So, having volunteers that help us put those things on or help with registration, stuff like that is just an important part of making bicycle racing happen. Everyone wants to say that road racing is dying. Well, I think part of what they're alluding to is these major races where it's a full-on production and there's no buy-in and no assistance from the locals, or there's a very small team of volunteers that make everything happen, but the day in, day out racers don't really get to help. So this year, I'm already starting to line up teams to help us. Jason Bradbury and Reunion are covering the first 4 weeks, and then we'll kind of go through, each of them from there. Last year it was Reunion, United came out, and I think they actually covered 2 series, and Reunion covered 2 series. Pegasus, which is a part of the Trek Bicycle Shops, came out and did a series. Cadence Cyclery, which is now Skyline Cadence, did a series. So Frisco Cycling Club, which is Lineate, now the Rhapsody Bike Mart, did one. In fact, they even put money in on top of it for prize money. So we're getting this phenomenal buy-in from people who want to make sure the races happen, want to contribute to the atmosphere, and the camaraderie that happens as well. And so that's really an amazing thing.
I assume, there might be some people watching this video that have no intention of racing, that maybe physically they can't, or for whatever reason, but they're interested in the scene and they would like to participate and they'd like to volunteer. There could be a role for them, for these people that they like bikes, they want to be part of this. You can come, you can be a fan, you could get involved. Is that not the case?
That's 100% the case, and more so a vital part. And some of it's volunteers, some of it there's the opportunity to get paid for. Our USA Cycling officials actually get paid, and there's a process for learning the rules, taking the class, taking a test and getting licensed as an official. And then, you start off with races like ours as, an assistant referee, assistant judge, stuff like that, and moving up and earning points and earning, credibility within the races and getting experience, and then doing some of the bigger races and moving on to national championships and even world championships. So we have some national commissars and some UCI commissars in our local area. And that's exactly how they got started, was with local level races like ours. Now, for them, it was a couple decades ago, but, moving up. Laura Popovich, who is our chief judge, is phenomenal. She's able to run the whole night pretty much by herself, but she'd be happy to take someone in under her wing and teach them. And she was the USAC official of the year just a couple of years ago for the whole country. So, we have an amazing resource around us. Bonnie Sullenberger has been our chief judge. Steve Cruz, who's a national commissar and officiates national championships, and I believe even the UCI World Championships and stuff like that. So we've got incredible resources, but that's how it starts, is people who know they don't want to race, but want to be involved. And maybe, like in Laura's example, her daughter was a bike racer. So she said, you know what, if I'm going to go to the bike races and watch anyway, I may as well be an official and get paid, and that'll help offset some of the costs of my daughter racing, and then, gives me something to do as well. And then as her daughter moved on through the sport, Laura stuck around with officiating and is really amazing at it. So, and, it's funny because she makes it she takes more on than she really needs to. With the timing system, it records every single rider that crosses the line, exactly where they are, to perfection. She still does the old school, method of recording every lap, what the time gaps are between the riders, and riders off the front and riders off the back. And, so she's got all these journals of all these races, and there's a certain amount of hieroglyphics and code that goes into it, but every once in a while we'll go back and double check, and, someone will email me on a Friday going, hey, I really think I got 22nd, not 38th last Tuesday. Can you look back and tell me? And of course, I've got the timing system, and I look at it, and I know what the timing system says, and I'll shoot Laura a text or email and say, hey, can you go back and verify where this rider was? Or we had a rider that said he wasn't down a lap. What do you have in your journal? And she can pull it out and show us exactly, that matches the timing system. So we have that great backup. And if God forbid, the electromagnetic whatever happens inside that box goes kaput, we've got her with everything ready to go anyway. So, but those are great examples. Or helping with registration, helping with bib numbers and chip rentals. And there's a lot of little stuff that there's always need for non-racers or people who maybe aren't racing that night or whatever to help with. Or like I said, a significant other or a child or a parent that wants to get involved in a different way besides being on the bike.
Cycling attracts a lot of people, some of them local business people, some of them part of national and regional corporations. Some of them might be watching this and thinking, I'd like to sponsor, I'd like to get my company out there. Are there sponsorship opportunities?
Absolutely. So probably my biggest weakness with this race series is that I do not knock doors or pound the pavement to find sponsorship. Every single sponsor has been inbound, meaning they came to me and said, hey, Ryan, love what you're doing with this series, would love to sponsor it. Great. What do you want to sponsor? And then kind of have a discussion of, well, we're really passionate about juniors, or we're passionate about the C race or the, A race or whatever. And so we want to give some prize money, or we want to give product or whatever. Great. Let's work that out and, make sure that they're getting what they want out of it. I would be much more financially successful if I were to go out and just start knocking on corporate doors and saying, hey, I'd really like this much money for, this many social media impressions and, whatever. I'm too busy on the actual cycling stuff to get out there and do it. And it's a matter of bandwidth, and I just don't have it.
So they can reach out to you if they have an interest in that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like the reach of the race is larger than just the people racing. You have the people who used to race, who follow it, the people who want to race. casual people in the just the cycling local world here. I remember the first time I got on the podium, that first race in the C race, and like the most exciting thing for me was like I'm gonna go back to my group ride and I'm gonna have like I'll be like the guy that was on the podium, and just getting a few people there in that group ride, actually several people saying, hey, congratulations, then they're paying attention and you got those kudos. So people are paying attention. For those people that are thinking about sponsoring, there's a larger ecosystem out here. And I'm not like a marketer here or something, but they have disposable income. They like to spend it, and they do appreciate people that sponsor the things that they care about. So
for sure. And so we're both, from an advertising standpoint, there's advertising opportunities there. We're also a 501c3, so for people that are looking to get a tax deduction for it, we're capable of doing that as well. So we're very flexible there. And then Leah, who handles our social media and is truly amazing at it, and I don't know why she still puts up with me, but she makes sure that our sponsors get recognition and stuff like that as well. And we're always looking at how we can improve that. It's social media is a big weakness of mine, right after not beating doors for more money.
Yeah. We're running a little low on time, but I think maybe like one last thing I want to bring up. The weather's great right now. It's nice and cool. It's the spring. This is a series that goes through the summer in Texas. Last year was really hot, and we had many races that were in above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And we did see a drop in participation, which is normal mostly in summer. It's a long thing, but what would you say to the racers? And by the way, I kept racing in the heat and I was fine. What would you say to the racers? Like, what could we say about the heat and still racing in the heat? And what are your thoughts about that?
So I'm going to actually break that into two parts. And the second part will be about how, as an athlete, to mitigate that. But let me back up. And one of the things that we do that's different than every other race out there is that we do both refunds and rollovers. And this came as a result of COVID, is that I didn't want anyone registering for a bike race and then that morning not feeling well, but feeling like they had to show up to race because they paid their money. That's the last thing I want. Or, they were on the race, and this has happened to me before, where I was on my way to a bike race and then get called back to work and I missed the race and therefore lost my entry fee. And of course, then I'm just in a bad mood about everything, right? So, we do these. First option is just it automatically rolls over to the next week or the next time you come out. And if, say, for example, it's a racer that's from out of town and that doesn't work out for whatever reason, or weather restricted us or canceled the races, we'll do a refund. And it's not a big deal. Just text me or email me and we'll get it taken care of. It's like 3 clicks on the computer as long as I'm in front of the computer. So, I always want people to know that one of the mantras I have is that this is your hobby. You should be doing this for fun. We alluded to this a little bit earlier. If it's stressing you out that much, especially over a $20 entry fee, then maybe you should rethink whether or not you should be racing that night. We've all had those days where we went into work on that weekday, really excited about the racing, and then all heck broke loose. And you couldn't get away from the office, or the concept and thought of trying to get away from the office was just so stressful. And then you're racing to try and get to the races, and who knows how many people you're jeopardizing besides yourself in trying to fight traffic like that. Don't worry about it. We'll be here next week. So, that is the overall attitude I have as far as any conflicts you have, whether it's weather or work or family or anything else. So back to mitigating the heat. First, you've got to train in it. If you're, if you're always getting up at 6:30 to ride when it's barely even light and maybe it's 75 degrees, well, then 100 degrees is going to hit you really hard. So you do have to get some adaptation to it. We have all kinds of little tricks that we'll take pantyhose and fill with ice and then shove them down the back of our skin suit or jersey and put them under our bibs. My favorite is there's a little Tupperware container that's about that big. You can also get all the deli meat stuff at Tom Thumb. It's the perfect size. Fill that with water and then freeze it. And you stick it in the pantyhose and down the back. It last right at 45 minutes to an hour. So it's perfect for the race. And that will cool your core temperature off quite a bit. We're very fortunate we have a phenomenal sponsorship with pickle juice. So from a cramping standpoint and a staying hydrated standpoint, there's not a better product out there. And a lot of people don't know how the pickle juice works. And Philip would be really disappointed with me if I didn't point out it's not actually pickled juice. It's pickled brine. And there's very specially formulated to stopping cramps and even preventing cramps. So I do take it preventatively, and then I'll take it during a race as well. The mechanism it works is not actually through digestion. It works by triggering something in the back of the mouth and the throat. The acidity level of the brine shortcuts something in the central nervous system, and Philip can go deep into detail about how it works. But that's what shortcuts the cramps immediately. Because of the salt content of the brine, it will help you maintain your hydration as long as you are taking fluids with it. So that's another thing. And then, your electrolytes and your water. And I'm one who tends to drink just water on the bike. I find I have a lot of gut issues with the different amounts of sugar and salt and everything else in the different products. And I haven't found the right thing other than just good old fashioned Coca-Cola. But even that gets a little flat and sticky and everything else in a race. So, pickle juice and water is really what I personally prefer. And then the ice sock is a great way of doing it. When you get out to the races, get out, start riding, do a gradual warm up so that you get everything moving. And that will greatly help your heat adaptation. Doing some rides in the afternoons and not just in the mornings will help as well. So those are kind of strategies we have. And then we have popsicles. We go through hundreds of popsicles a week. And you get those included in your $20.
Yeah. Well, I brought my son to a couple of the crits, and he got to try the pickle juice there at the crit. Had a good time with that. I guess we've been talking a long time. Really appreciate your time. One thing that didn't get mentioned that ought to be mentioned was your national championship last year in 2023. I guess if you were more of a self-promoter, you'd have brought that up right at the beginning, but it's been really cool to see you in that national championship jersey. This was a Masters Amateur on the track national champion last year. Perhaps a word about that.
It was team pursuit, and I was very fortunate to have really probably the three best masters in the country on my team. So, they would have won regardless of who that fourth rider was. So I can't take too much credit other than maybe being in the right place, the right time, or being good enough that they invited me on the team, perhaps. But no, it's always an honor to win a national championship. It's certainly motivation during the off season as well. And then the surreal thing for me, though, was really the community being so excited about it for me on my behalf after the fact and when I got back to Dallas. So that's probably, I think I cherish that as much as actually winning the jersey itself. The number of people that texted me or messaged me on social media or whatever, just, really excited for me, I think is probably as meaningful as anything else.
Yeah, humble as always. It reminds me of I won the NBA championship, but it was LeBron was on my team. Well, you got to be pretty good to be on LeBron's team. And in this case, they could have picked someone else, but I don't believe one word of what you just said, that you were the guy who just holding on like a barnacle here. So humble as always. Now, one thing, Ryan is a great strategist, a phenomenal racer. Just talking to Ryan about strategy over the years when he was my competitor, not my teammate. I'd be watching Ryan in the races that we did together. I'd be watching him. I was worried about him. I was monitoring how much energy he was using. And so later on, I thought, man, it would be so much fun to race with Ryan instead of race against Ryan. And so that's been a lot of fun for me. So maybe some other time we can have a talk about like strategy, like maybe a talk about, for example, like B racers and upping the strategy and the know-how and so forth related to like tactics and things. But that's another discussion for another day. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
For sure. I'd love to do that. And I'm a big believer that the more you know about a sport, the more you enjoy it. So I think the more anyone knows about tactics and strategy, the more they're going to enjoy it. Even if it doesn't necessarily work out for them all the time. It's kind of like if you're a football fan, knowing what the plays are and knowing what the coverages are make it more interesting. So cycling is pretty complex, and the plays aren't quite as obvious. They're really pretty subtle. Back to the conversation with Andrew Armstrong earlier about you just really enjoyed watching us pull out our playbooks and run different plays and see the whole thing unfold. So yeah, I'd love to have that conversation. That's probably a couple conversations.
In behalf of the cycling community, I don't know that I can speak for them, but I will anyway. Just want to thank you for all the work that you've done. I think this is maybe thankless isn't the right word, but there's a lot of work that you do that people don't know about, and I know people do thank you, but it's probably not enough, and there needs to be a little more. So we are grateful for everything you're doing to keep racing alive here in this area and beyond this area, in our country, in the national, track, for taking the time to give us this information today. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Very good. I'll catch you guys later on the channel some other time. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.